tonight, a government deeply concerned over the case of two men accused of abusing young people in St. John's for years.
She was probably the senior social worker in the province, so she'd be investigating herself because that's the peak of all this Humby and Escott stuff.
The Premier wants an investigation in the wake of the Tony Humby-Bruce Escott case, but that retired Crown prosecutor says the youth advocate should not lead the charge.
Titan and the company OceanGate did everything they could to avoid certification and oversight.
He said I would buy a congressman and make basically the problems would go away.
Prioritizing success over safety. More testimony today at the Titan inquiry about CEO Stockton Rush's brazen and relentless nature.
We just call it magic. We just call it CB Nui magic. There's no other way to explain it.
Corner Brook is getting ready for CB Nui, a nighttime art festival that brings the streets to life.
This is CBC Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. We begin with an ongoing investigation that we've been following all week long. Premier Andrew Furey has directed the province's child and youth advocate to investigate child protection policies in the wake of CBC's reporting on the Tony Humby-Bruce Escott case. But not everyone agrees that's the right move. As Ryan Cook reports, a retired Crown prosecutor is calling out the advocate's connections with the very department she'll now be investigating.
We have some more clarity today on what exactly the Premier has directed the Child and Youth Advocate to do from this cabinet order published online. It will be an investigation into policies and procedures that ensure the safety of children and youth in care when a report is received of sexual abuse or exploitation. That order doesn't mention Tony Humby and Bruce Escott by name, but the Premier has said on social media that it's in response to new information coming to light in their case. That was after CBC Investigates reported on search warrant documents untested in court that showed police officers and social workers were aware of allegations against Tony Humby long before he was arrested. Humby has pleaded not guilty to dozens of charges and goes on trial next year. Bruce Escott has reached a plea deal. The decision to engage the child and youth advocate Linda Clemens-Spurl was welcomed by opposition leader Tony Wakeham earlier this week, but not everyone is on board with the idea. Recently retired Crown prosecutor Mike Murray spoke to the St. John's Morning Show earlier today.
Since Ms. Spurl has been child and youth advocate, which is 2 years now, there has not been a single investigative report released, so I don't know if she's ever investigated anything. I don't know if she has the tools or the ability because there's no track record.
And Murray has another issue with Clemens-Spurl. She was a senior official with the Child Welfare Department during the heights of the Humby-Escott investigation.
She comes right out of the system. She was probably the senior social worker in the province. I think she was assistant deputy minister before she was appointed child and youth advocate.
Right, 2019 to 2022.
That's right. So she'd be investigating herself.
The Premier's office declined to address Murray's comments today, deferring instead to the Advocate's office to speak for itself. In a written response, the Advocate's office says it's been around for 20 years and is well positioned to fulfill its mandate. Ryan Cook, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, more explosive testimony on the last day of hearings into the Titan implosion. A former OceanGate employee says when he brought up safety concerns, CEO Stockton Rush told him he'd buy the support of a congressman. Heather Gillis reports.
After 9 days of witness testimony, hearings into the Titan submersible's implosion, more than 3 kilometers underwater, are now over. But not before one last round of shocking testimony. Today, former OceanGate employee Matthew McCoy told the hearing he was concerned Titan wouldn't be inspected by the Coast Guard and that the company was skirting rules to get paying passengers aboard its subs. McCoy, a former Coast Guard enforcement officer who worked for OceanGate for 6 months in 2017, says he brought those concerns to CEO Stockton Rush over lunch one day.
He said I would buy a congressman and make basically the problems would go away at that point in time. And that is directed. That will stand in my mind for the rest of time.
McCoy says he was aghast and quit the next day.
And we brought this team together, frankly, because OceanGate was operating without a plan.
The U.S. Coast Guard captain who led the search and rescue mission for Titan also took the stand today. Jamie Fredericks says when the distress call came in, the U.S. Coast Guard had aircraft already in St. John's for International Ice Patrol, a program set up coincidentally in the wake of the Titanic's sinking. He got them searching right away. He says they mobilized 70,000 pounds of equipment to St. John's in mere days, all for the deep diving ROV they needed to search the ocean floor. The international efforts to find the sub, he says, were unprecedented. Then, investigators dropped this piece of evidence. During questioning last year, the captain of the Polar Prince said in hindsight, he thought he felt the ship shudder around the same time Titan communications were lost. Info, Fredericks says, would have changed things.
That's the first I've seen that. My initial reaction is if that was information they have, to me personally, it'd be unconscionable that they would not share that with the Unified Command. It certainly would have been information that could have had a drastic impact on the search efforts.
Meanwhile, the U.S. Coast Guard's next step is to comb through a mountain of evidence and prepare a report to try to prevent something like this from happening again. The Transportation Safety Board in the U.S. is also going to do a report, and they are going to try to pinpoint the probable cause of the implosion. In this country, the Transportation Safety Board here is also writing a report, but they can't say when it'll be done. Heather Gillis, CBC News, St. John's.
Still with this story, a maritime historian has been watching this inquiry closely. Sal Mercogliano says we may never know what caused Titan's implosion, but says OceanGate's CEO Stockton Rush was in a rush, avoided testing, and put success over safety.
I think you saw some very overt efforts by this company to avoid oversight. I mean, they left the U.S. basically waters to go dive in the Bahamas, to operate out of Canada. There was even a statement that Stockton Rush was going to put a congressman in his pocket to get the rules changed regarding this. I mean, he was doing everything he could to avoid it. And you must not forget, I mean, Stockton Rush rode that submersible down, and I don't think he thought the submersible was going to fail. He just wanted to get a product out there so that it can start making money and start doing dives. And unfortunately, he put success of the company over risk.
We're not done with this conversation. As Heather Gillis mentioned, this was the last day of hearings at the American inquiry into the Titan tragedy. More takeaways from this week's testimony that's still to come on Here and Now. Well, people in Newfoundland and Labrador are waiting years for a Parkinson's diagnosis. Those times are well above the Canadian average, and the National Advocacy Group calls the wait times unacceptable. Daryl Roberts reports.
Robert Emberley thinks a lot about balance. He has to. He was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease nearly 15 years ago.
From the onset of having Parkinson's, I knew I was going to lose a sense of balance.
It made cycling, one of his favorite pastimes, much more difficult. So he built his own stationary bike.
You have to keep your steering wheel or the handlebars straight. So there's more micro twitching in the upper body than there is in the lower body. So you have to have enough breath to keep that thing going at 15 kilometers an hour.
In the 1970s, Robert biked across Newfoundland. 4 years ago, he decided to do it again, this time in his garage, using an odometer and with a purpose. He wants people to know that a Parkinson's diagnosis doesn't mean giving up. And today, he's living that belief, because when finished that virtual bike ride across the island, he realized he wasn't done.
I decided I'm going to try going across Canada.
He's tracking his progress, and right now, he's in British Columbia, virtually. Friends from the West Coast even mailed sand and seashells from the Pacific Ocean to celebrate. It's a big challenge, but not the only one for Parkinson's patients.
The gap that we currently have in the province is with the diagnosis time. So we currently have a 3 to 4 year wait for a diagnosis for Parkinson's. That is really unacceptable, and we're trying to address that to bring that wait time down.
According to a 2022 report from Parkinson's Canada, those wait times here are well above the Canadian average of 11 months. CBC News has asked NL Health Services for an interview about those long wait times, which are happening as more people are being diagnosed with the disease.
The number of people living with Parkinson's is expected to double in less than the next decade. And we're seeing that here in Newfoundland and Labrador. The number of calls that we're getting has increased dramatically since I started it 10 years ago.
Robert, meanwhile, is almost at the end of his cross-Canada journey.
Why is this so important to you to accomplish this?
I sooner do that than die. You gotta do something in life. And I see so many people with Parkinson's. You see it in the media. The poor soul got Parkinson's. I guess they're going to slowly die.
Robert's pushing back against that narrative. He's also demonstrating the importance of exercise. It doesn't cure Parkinson's, but it can help with the symptoms. So far, he's ridden more than 7,000 kilometers. He has 80 to go, and he's keeping his eye on the horizon. Daryl Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
Now to the west coast of the island, the streets of downtown Corner Brook are about to get a whole lot more colorful. Come Saturday, thousands are expected to take in the night festival showcasing art and music. Here Right Now's Colleen Connors has more on what to expect.
The West Coast popular CB Nui is celebrating its 8th year, and organizers are hoping for 10,000 visitors to West Street. The event will feature musical performances and interactive art installations. Like Marcia Hewer's Negotiating Plus or Minus.
These are all plastic bags, and they will be inflated. And they will be inflating and deflating. And this year's theme for CB Nui is spiral. So I'm going to program the bags to go inflate and deflate in spiral formation.
Each bag contains fans, wires, and a control board with 7 settings to choose from.
It's sort of my plan for the work that people will stop and pause in their daily life and have a moment to imagine and go to another world or space.
That feeling is exactly what CB Nui organizers hope to achieve with this ever-growing nighttime art show that features interactive art, plays, lights scattered across a closed downtown street and tucked into alleyways and buildings.
I think it works so well because everybody's invited to the party, and also we invite artists to create projects that are, we call it participatory. So it means that you'll either go to a project and you'll create something yourself, or you'll walk through it and experience something unique. And so everybody who comes actually expresses themselves in some way.
Last year, 8,000 people came to take it all in, and this year the goal is double digits. More than 50 artists and musicians are being showcased, some from the community, some from the visual arts program at Memorial University's Grenfell campus.
We have so many art installations, performance pieces, interactive pieces, arts and crafts. There is something for everyone to get involved. If music's not your thing, there's art.
For the event, Keeble says there's a comedy act this year and a live musical stage set up at the top of West Street. The event is free to the public. Government grants cover the fees to run such an elaborate festival. CB Nui kicks off at 7 and will run until midnight. Colleen Connors, CBC News, Corner Brook.
The long-term target is to plant over 1 million trees in the park.
Well, they're about to get growing in Gross Mourne. Hear how the West Coast Provincial Park is doing its part to help hit a target of 2 billion trees.
These are the ones we get. The growing season certainly still in full bloom up across parts of Labrador, but that is a very different story across the island. Temperatures still cool. We'll get into the details coming up.
weekend is here, Ashley. Lots of people planning out what they're going to do over the next few days. It's a holiday for some folks on Monday. How's the weekend looking?
Yeah, well, it's looking a little wet for some areas. The sun's going to peek out, though. Some places haven't seen the sun for a very long time. Let's take a look at what's going on today, though. But here is one of them. We certainly haven't seen anything in the metro area for the last couple of what feels like more than a week for sure. But we do have an area of low pressure just to the south right now that is bringing some cloud cover and showers pretty much across the board at the moment. And we still got some pretty lovely weather up across portions of Labrador, but that cloud cover edging into southeastern portions of Labrador at the moment. And as far as the temperatures go, there really has not been a ton of movement in the daytime highs anywhere in onshore flow along the northeast coast, eastern Newfoundland. 11 degrees today again, or should I say right now, in St. John's. Same thing as you head all along the northeast coast. Twillingate 11 degrees. Badger 13. Your temperatures were cool this morning through Grand Falls, Windsor, but they have warmed up 12 degrees this afternoon. And then up across Labrador, that is where most of the warmth is right now, anywhere from 14 to 18 degrees in Makovic this afternoon. So here's a look at a closer look at the rain that is happening. It is very widespread across the province, or across the island rather. And we do have some heavier showers that moved through southwestern portions of the island earlier today. They have since dissipated a little bit, but we're still looking at some shower activity as we head through tonight. Now, if you notice on the satellite, we've got the southerly flow, that push of moisture for most of the island, but we're still in onshore flow, and you can see that on the radar, the easterly flow for the Avalon. So a couple of systems here at play, but as we head through tonight, we're going to continue to see that shower activity as this area of low pressure skirts the island through the overnight tonight. Up across Labrador, it is still going to be a fairly quiet night for you. Just some cloud cover along the strait there, maybe the chance of some isolated drizzle, or patchy drizzle, I should say. But other than that, not a whole lot on the go across Labrador. Your temperatures again are going to be chilly, 4 to 7 degrees overnight tonight. The island will see temperatures somewhere between 8 and 9 degrees, except along the south coast, where temperatures will be between 10 to 12 degrees. But again, winds generally light for most of us. As we head into tomorrow, clouds will we'll see a little bit of a break in the cloud cover through the afternoon through central areas of the island as well as the west. Otherwise, that onshore flow continues. That means periods of rain, or periods of drizzle rather, some showers certainly possible for most of eastern Newfoundland through tomorrow. And things don't really start to improve until we head into the evening. We may see some breaks in the cloud cover as we head towards the evening, but the best chance of that, like I said, will be through central Labrador. Another absolutely gorgeous day again tomorrow, with plenty of sunshine through the day. Now, some clouds will likely linger in the west and potentially the north coast, but you will see some more showers move in along a trough. That will start to affect you by the time you get into Sunday night, Saturday night rather, and through the day on Sunday. Now, taking a look at the forecast for tomorrow, temperature-wise, pretty similar to what we've been talking about, what I've been talking about all week, 13 to 16 degrees. Winds will be out of the east, a little breezy, 20 to 40 kilometers per hour. As you head through central, temperatures really not moving too much either, but between 11 to 15 degrees through the day. West coast, like I said, clouds should thin as the day goes on. You should reach temperatures in the mid to upper teens tomorrow. For the northern peninsula, a tad cooler, but some sunshine in the mix there for you as well. 20 degrees in Cartwright tomorrow afternoon with your winds out of the southwest. Not overly impressive, but still there, 15 to 20 kilometers per hour in the rest of Labrador. Absolutely beautiful Saturday. We'll talk about how long that will last when I come back.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, at first glance, you may think there's no shortage of trees in Grossmoor National Park, but there's actually been a decline in the number of trees in some parts of the park, in part because of moose overgrazing. So the park is on a mission to plant hundreds of thousands of new trees.
We started planting trees last year, so in 2023. That was a bit of a test year. We planted 120,000 trees across about 30 hectares of the park, of these disturbed sites. And that went well, and so we took some lessons from that and we scaled up this year. So this year we planted 300,000 trees in the national park, and we're going to try and do 300,000 again next year and keep it going for a few more years. The long-term target is to plant over 1 million trees in the park, and that's both to restore these ecosystems, but also as part of the national 2 billion trees target, which is about nature-based solutions to climate change. Most of our trees that we plant in the park are conifers that we get from the provincial tree nursery near Grand Falls. It's a location called Wooddale. The province is fantastic in supplying those to us, and they are experts at growing those trees. That said, the province grows conifers. They don't typically grow hardwood trees. And for our restoration in the park, we're doing it a little differently than they might do on lands that have been affected by forestry or what, where they're planting in clear cuts and things. We want to do more of an ecological restoration. So we want a more balanced mix of trees in the forest that we're planting. And we're also thinking about climate change. And so there are some southern hardwood species in the boreal forest that are more climate adapted to the, how we expect conditions to be when these trees mature in 20, 30, 40 years now. So we actually took a step to create a greenhouse of our own here in the national park to start growing our own hardwood trees. So we created that greenhouse last summer. We built it here. We also went out last fall and collected seeds for a lot of these trees. So all the seeds for these trees we're growing here are collected in the national park. And this spring started growing our first crop of trees. And so we produced about 10,000 seedlings now. And most of those are red maple and yellow birch, which are some southern boreal hardwood tree species. And we've also done a smaller number of white birch or paper birch, people would know it as, and balsam poplar. Moose, like all of us, they're selective eaters, and so they really like hardwood trees. They're not as fond of things like balsam fir. So the balsam fir at this lower population of moose that we have right now, they're not really being bothered by the moose anymore in the park, so they'll grow just fine. That said, we're also planting them in a mix with some spruce trees, and this is some advice we got from the province. Moose don't like to eat spruce, and so by planting them in the fir in a mix with spruce, that further reduces the chances that moose are going to, find the moose or find the fir in the middle and seek them out. The hardwood trees on the other side, that's like candy for moose. They really like that. And so if we planted them in the backcountry in the park right now, we are still worried that they would get eaten by moose. Very likely they would. And so most of those are going to be planted more in front country sites where there's higher hunting pressure in the park and so lower moose densities.
Well, over the past 2 weeks, we've heard shocking testimony about the catastrophic implosion of the Titan submersible during a dive to the Titanic wreck on June 18th. All 5 people on board were killed, including OceanGate co-founder Stockton Rush. Now, the inquiry into the Titan tragedy wrapped up in North Carolina today. And joining me now to talk about some of the key moments is Sal Mercogliano, a maritime historian at Campbell University in North Carolina. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Well, some incredible moments from this inquiry. What stands out the most for you?
I think the thing that stands out the most is really the red flag and red warnings that were signaling about this project. I mean, you continually had people who were associated with OceanGate who raised concerns and alerts about the submersible and the potential for a catastrophic loss. Unfortunately, there was really no one they can go to except for the CEO, Stockton Rush.
What did you learn from the inquiry that you didn't know before?
I think the big thing we pulled from the inquiry is the level of concern that people had on the submersible and the technology that was being used. Plus, I mean, we had some testimony in there about concerns while during dives, sounds emanating from the Titan, and the fact that really Titan and the company OceanGate did everything they could to avoid certification and oversight by any outside agency. There seemed to be apparently a rush to get the submersible out there and start making money, bringing passengers down to the Titanic.
So much happened during the inquiry, and I'm wondering, is there something that just really surprised you the most? Was there a moment that just shocked you?
I think the one that really I came away with here continually, this is a hearing that was held by the U.S. Coast Guard. And, you know, there were Coast Guard members, you know, either retired or former employees who were involved with this. Yet the Coast Guard didn't have any real oversight over this. And, you know, I keep coming back to the idea that Titan operated in a void. It was not a registered vessel in a specific country. It operated off a Canadian vessel out in international waters. And in many ways, just like Titanic, it helped set the rules and procedures for what needs to go forward. And Titan seemed to operate in that. It just continually, there seemed to be so many alerts and warnings for us that just went unheeded.
From the perspective of the investigators and the Coast Guard, what do you think is the most important takeaway for those investigators leading this hearing?
Well, I'm not exactly sure we're ever going to find out what the ultimate cause, I mean, the definitive cause for the submersible's end. We know it imploded. We know there was a failure on it. But I think the really big thing is the fact that this vessel was not adequately tested. It was a new type of technology. I am not one who's going to sit there and say carbon fiber cannot be used in deep submergence vessels in the future. It just was not properly tested to the extent that we've done other submersibles. 60 years of this industry, and we haven't had a death at depth until this event. And it's largely due to the fact that this submersible specifically was not tested. You have this CEO, Stockton Rush, who wanted to go down on the initial dive. These are usually automated and you go through multiple tests. That was not done with this submersible.
Has this inquiry brought us any closer to understanding how this company managed to go virtually unchecked for so very long?
Well, I mean, I think you saw some very overt efforts by this company to avoid oversight. I mean, they left the U.S. basically waters to go dive in the Bahamas, to operate out of Canada. There was even a statement that Stockton Rush was going to put a congressman in his pocket to get the rules changed regarding this. I mean, he was doing everything he could to avoid it. And you must not forget, I mean, Stockton Rush rode that submersible down, and I don't think he thought the submersible was going to fail. He just wanted to get a product out there so that it can start making money and start doing dives. And unfortunately, he put success of the company over risk.
And there were so many examples of that, even trying to dodge the regulatory constraints by referring to the paying customers as mission specialists.
Oh, I mean, there's so many red flags again that we come back to this, but I think that is the concern I have more than anything else. You know, it's the U.S. Coast Guard that's holding this hearing. And in some ways, I did not hear questioning about the Coast Guard's role in this. I think the Coast Guard did have a role in this. They were taking paid passengers down on rides on a submersible that was built in the United States with assistance of some other entities. And unfortunately, there was no oversight regulation from a flag registry, either the United States or Canada. There was no classification society. And the other thing I didn't hear really much about was who is insuring this vessel to ensure that this was taking place with due diligence. And that was really one of the big issues.
So what happens next now? What do you think might come out of this whole exercise?
Well, you know, after the hearings of the Titanic, when Titanic sank in 1912, we saw international regulations that came out that required the Safety of Life at Sea Convention, mandated the lifeboats on board, and other regulatory issues like 24-hour radio monitoring. Kind of hoping that comes out of this is some sort of oversight rules. Perhaps submersibles will have to be registered in specific countries and they'll have to meet standards. You know, unfortunately, Stockton Rush found a loophole, a gap, a void in the rules and regulations because no one had thought anyone would build a submersible that was not properly tested because of the fact that there's no margin for error when you're at depth. And what we saw was that error creeped into the Titan and unfortunately led to the death of the 5 people on board.
Well, Sal Mercogliano, really appreciate your time and your expertise on this. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for having me.
NL Schools is pushing back on claims that a change in policy may bring in stricter rules for sports. The policy requires teacher sponsors for every school-based tryout, practice, game, or tournament. It's caused so much pushback, people have even been writing their MHAs. Here's how the conversation played out on the St. John's Morning Show.
In the last couple of days, it's blown up. It's like throwing gas on a flame. You know, I've received many emails, many calls, many messages, and it seems to be around the fact that the policy for student supervision for sports and extracurricular activities is a bit stricter than it was in the past, and that's created cancellation of tryouts, cancellation of potential tournaments. Parents have children that may not be able to participate in sports, and it's not just sports. It could be any activity. It could be arts. It could be anything. But right now, because start of school year, you see many sports teams wanting to get going, and now we're hearing from teachers and administrators and coaches that are telling us they can't do it now because they don't have a teacher sponsor.
Contrary to what is out there in the public, the policy has not changed. This policy has been in place for years and years. And the system has operated under it with no issues. So I just want to first make that clear that the policy has not changed. If you go on, you'll see it's the same wording that's been there for forever and a day. We haven't changed the wording. We haven't changed the policy in a number of years. So as I said, I don't know where this is coming from in the public that all of a sudden there's a change. It has not changed.
In my opinion, if this policy was enforced to the letter of how it's written, it will cripple the school sports system. Right now, I think we've heard over the last number of years, particularly since the pandemic, about the shortage of teachers that are out there, how much teachers are overburdened, the lack of work-life balance and the effect that has on teachers and their well-being. So I think with all of those pressures on teachers, it's just becoming unrealistic that we can operate a system in the schools and expect that there's always going to be a teacher. And I think the danger in my mind is that you're going to get a major divide between, first of all, those families that can afford private instruction and private club systems and those that can't. If you don't have the socioeconomic or other means, time, capacity, whatever it is, you won't get that opportunity. And the other part of that equation, I guess, is looking at the great divide between rural and urban opportunities. In most of the rural areas, the school is the place in the community. So if that's not available due to lack of teacher supervision, there are no other options for students. We need some clarification so we know where we're going. Right now, I don't know what to tell anybody when they call my office and ask for clarification because it's not my decision to make. At this point, it's the decision of NL Schools.
Well, it's a big job, but 8-year-old Maverick Bishop of PEI is up for the challenge. The honorary head coach of the Charlottetown Islanders is waiting for a heart transplant in Toronto, but last week he made his debut behind the bench for the opening game of the regular season. Sheehan Desjardins has that story.
He might just be the youngest coach in the Canadian Hockey League, but 8-year-old Maverick Bishop is up for the challenge.
So Maverick's he's our honorary coach for the 2024-2025 season and hopefully get us some wins. He might be a little nicer than some coaches, but no, he's a great kid and we never know, maybe he'll give us a couple stern talking tos.
We look up to him every day for his braveness, obviously. Really great kid and just, makes us happy to be here. See him with his smile, just walking around the rink.
I like you. That's a big responsibility, especially for someone in grade 2.
What's up, buddy? What's up, Mav?
But off the ice, he's got a much different fight ahead.
Maverick is on a pretty long journey here since birth. He's already had 6 open heart surgeries. Well, hopefully it shows them, here's a little kid that would just do anything to play hockey. So it's a long season for them, and I'm sure there'll be times where maybe they can just think about, little Maverick and just give them that extra little push.
Today's focus is the power play.
KFC, yeah, he's pretty good, isn't he?
Who else?
Head coach Jim Holton needs their lineup ready and knows Maverick is the one for the job.
Feels great. Hockey is like my only favorite sport.
Sometimes in this game we get caught up in taking it so serious that we forget that there's a lot of challenges in life aside from hockey, and Maverick's a perfect epitome of that. He's struggling through a lot of things, yet every day he comes in with a big smile on his face and he loves the game, and I want that to wear off on our guys.
With that, it's officially the regular season. Maverick is here tonight, but soon he'll be cheering from Toronto while he waits for a new heart.
We don't know how long we'll be there. It could be 6 months, it could be 3 years. He has to stay within a 2-hour radius of the hospital, and you never know when that pager is going to go off to it's time to get him a new heart, so that he can get back home and he can start doing all the things that he loves, like playing hockey and playing soccer.
One thing is for sure, though. Back on PEI, he's got his whole team behind him. And Mavericks got a message for the players.
It's time to kick some ass.
Chien Desjardins, CBC News, Charlottetown. Well, across Florida and Georgia today, neighborhoods were underwater and at least 5 people dead in the wake of Hurricane Helene. It came ashore along the Florida Panhandle last night with winds of 225 kilometers an hour. Water rescues were in the thousands. Trees were uprooted, boats pushed onto front lawns, and 4 million homes and businesses lost power. Today, it dumped rains on North and South Carolina. Ahead of the storm, insurers were bracing for losses possibly reaching $6 billion. The Prime Minister of Israel addressed the United Nations General Assembly today. Benjamin Netanyahu vigorously defended his country's military actions in Gaza and southern Lebanon.
Far from being lambs led to the slaughter, Israel's soldiers have fought back with incredible courage and with heroic sacrifice. And I have another message for this assembly and for the world outside this hall. We are winning.
Netanyahu blamed Iran for the troubles in the region. He warned that there is no place in Iran or the Middle East that the long arm of Israel cannot reach. Netanyahu also condemned the United Nations, citing more than 170 resolutions passed against Israel over the past decade. He referred to the General Assembly as, quote, a swamp of anti-Semitic bile. Well, actress Maggie Smith has died. Her career spanned stage, screen, and television, 2 continents, and 7 decades.
We're ready for you now. Follow me.
Well, for younger audiences, she was best known as Professor Minerva McGonagall in the Harry Potter movies, but she started acting at 17 on stage in England. And 1969's The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie won her an Oscar, her first of 2. She would win at the Emmys and Tonys as well, and in Canada made several Stratford Festival appearances. After Harry Potter came the Downton Abbey series in her 70s. And 5 years ago, she returned to the stage for a one-woman play. Maggie Smith was 89. Well, it's Friday, so let's find out who's celebrating. Happy 62nd anniversary to Jake and Violet King of Broad Cove. It's a golden anniversary tomorrow for Paul and Eva Nakasak of Nain. Congratulations. Best wishes to Calvin and Hazel Hibbs from Peterview on their 53rd anniversary. Happy 50th anniversary to John and Patsy Crow of Torbay. Wishing Robert and Minnie Gullidge of Kelligrews a happy 68th anniversary. Congratulations to Herman and Marie Fudge, who are celebrating their 52nd anniversary in Triton. It's a 59th anniversary today for Laura and Stuart Pye of Lodge Bay. Congratulations to Bob and Doris Anthony of Lewisport on their 56th anniversary. Happy anniversary to Junior and Gladys. It's their 58th anniversary tomorrow. Wishing Derek and Kathleen Hines of Benoit's Cove a happy 52nd anniversary. Congratulations to Ross and Woody Green of Clarenville. They're marking 53 years of marriage. Best wishes going out to Doris and Naaman Moland of Mount Pearl. They're celebrating 69 years together. Happy 63rd anniversary to Ronald and Emma Collins from Indian Bay. Wishing Alan and Willie Loader of Irishtown Summerside a happy 59th anniversary. Happy anniversary to Danny and Jesse Broaders of Beta Verde. They're celebrating 55 years together, and we're told that they are loyal Here and Now viewers, and we thank you for that. Happy 60th anniversary to Ross and Viola Sacre of Ming's Bite. It's a 50th anniversary today for Christine and Doug Brown of Gambo. Happy 61st anniversary to Wallace and Shirley Tippett in Lewisport. Now to some birthdays. Happy birthday to Viola Reed, who turns 95 today. Happy 95th birthday also to Dorothy Sutcliffe from Paradise. Nellie Maloney is also turning 95. She's from Sweet Bay, but now lives in Kelligrews. Wishing Angus Elliott a happy 90th birthday in Oshawa. Happy 90th birthday to Clyde Reed from Nettie's Harbor, now in Cornerbrook. Birthday wishes going out to Albert Burgess, who just turned 95. Happy 96th birthday to Evelyn LaRich of Port-aux-Basque, now living in St. John's. Beatrice Savory of Port-aux-Basque is celebrating a milestone. She just turned 100. Happy birthday to Violet Yetman of Bay Roberts, who's celebrating her 92nd birthday. Happy 93rd birthday to Raymond Flynn of Lansalou, Labrador, now living in Mount Pearl. Dawn Waterman of Gambo turned 91 this week. Happy birthday. Wishing Jane Butt a happy 99th birthday. She's from Robinsons and now lives in Stephenville Crossing. Happy birthday to Lockley Fiander, who turns 94 on Sunday. Here he is with his great-granddaughter. Happy 90th birthday tomorrow to Teresa Frampton in Arnold's Cove. Madeline Kavanagh of Flat Rock is turning 94. Happy birthday. Happy 90th birthday to Gregory Young in Stephenville. And birthday greetings going out to Flo White of Torbay, who turns 90 tomorrow. Another fine crowd. Congratulations once again. And Ashley, we're going to look ahead now to Sunday, and things are staying fairly gray, at least in our neck of the woods, right?
Yeah, I do think there's a chance that we might see a little bit more blue sky in the mix, especially across the eastern portion of the island. But let's take a look at what's going on. So this is going to be a bit of a change, though, for those of you up across Labrador, because it has been very nice. But there is a trough or cold front that is going to move through as we head into Sunday. So that is going to bring the chance of some showers through the day, particularly the western portion of the island as well as towards the coast. Now the south coast, you won't see those showers until the overnight period. But as far as the island is concerned, it is actually going to dry out a little bit compared to what we're going to see tomorrow. Now, for really the Avalon and parts of Central, you may see a few lingering showers, but I do think for the most part it will be fairly dry and clearing, but not until later in the day, especially in the east. Overall, daytime highs will sit in the teens again for the Avalon, and then mid to upper teens pretty much for the rest of the island, with the exception of the northern peninsula. We should see temperatures sitting around 14 degrees. Now, Labrador still hanging on to some pretty lovely temperatures, especially towards Corner Brook. 22 degrees is your daytime high. Again, you won't see those showers until later on in the day, so most of the afternoon should actually be quite sunny. And then we're looking at about 19 degrees for Happy Valley Goose Bay through the afternoon. As we head into Monday, it is going to get unsettled. So clouds will move back in across the island. And we're also looking at that front heading towards southeastern portions of Labrador, eventually the west coast as well into the morning hours. But note that onshore flow returns. So the chance of some showers again in onshore flow for eastern Newfoundland as we head into Monday. Behind that front, though, we should see some clearing for the rest of Labrador, and our temperatures are going to stay pretty much where they have been. So anywhere from 13 to 17 degrees across the island. Again, the northern peninsula, a tad cooler than that, but around 10 degrees. Labrador, you'll hover between 14 to 16 degrees with the exception of the southeast, where your temperatures will hover around 10 degrees. Long range forecast, it's back to the gray skies. Chance of drizzle and showers. In fact, some of these, maybe Tuesday or Wednesday, we may see some periods of rain in the mix there. But again, daytime highs not moving. For central Newfoundland, so a few showers for Monday, but Tuesday, Wednesday drying out. And that will be the story for western Newfoundland as well, with daytime highs between 11 to 13 degrees. For Labrador, other than that bit of rain on Sunday, still looking pretty nice and temperatures still above seasonable. And we're looking at that for western Labrador as well, with some showers in the mix by the time we get into Wednesday. Our photo of the day is a lovely shot here on Fogo Island. Thank you to Barbara for that great shot. Nice sunset there. Beautiful evening. If you have any weather photos that you would like to share with us, you can do that by sending it to my Facebook page or emailing them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Oh, lovely, lovely shot. Thank you so much for that, Barbara. Makes me think about that wonderful viz that we had on last night of the soft coral, that rare discovery made off Fogo Island there.
Somewhere under the ocean there.
Yeah. All right, so Monday is National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, also known as Orange Shirt Day. So all day long, CBC will have a lineup of Indigenous-led programming, and that means will be a slightly shorter show, a little bit later as well. We're going to start at 6:30 Island time, a half hour earlier in most parts of Labrador. Well, that's it for us. Thank you so much for spending part of your evening with us. Hope you have a wonderful weekend. Good night.